I first noticed the smell on a Tuesday morning. It didn't belong to anything specific. It wasn't garbage, or mold, or a dead animal. It was something heavier, sweeter, and wrong in a way my brain couldn't label. The kind of smell that makes you pause mid-step and wonder if you imagined it. I live alone in a small apartment building on the edge of the city. Old concrete walls. Thin pipes. Sounds travel easily here, but smells usually don't. That's why it bothered me. At first, it came and went. Only late at night. Only when everything was quiet. I checked my trash, the fridge, even the vents. Nothing. On the third night, I heard chewing. Not loud. Slow. Wet. Rhythmic. It was coming from the wall behind my bed. I pressed my ear against the cold concrete and held my breath. The sound stopped immediately, as if whatever was making it knew I was listening. A second later, something scraped inside the wall. Fingernails, maybe. Or teeth. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I asked my neighbor, Mr. Harlan, if he noticed anything strange. He stared at me longer than necessary before shaking his head. No, he said. But you shouldn't listen to walls. They listen back. I laughed, pretending it was a joke. He didn't. That evening, the smell returned stronger than ever. It filled my bedroom, thick and warm, clinging to my clothes and skin. My phone buzzed at 2:17 a.m. A notification from the building group chat. Does anyone else here eating? More messages followed. I smell something. It's coming from the lower floors. Did someone die? Before anyone could answer, the messages were deleted. All of them. One by one. Then I heard it again. Chewing. Closer this time. Not from the wall. From under the floor. Something pressed upward, slowly, as if testing the strength of the boards. Dust fell from the cracks. I stood frozen, unable to move, as the smell became unbearable. A voice whispered from below, muffled and broken. Don't waste it. That was the moment I realized something terrible. Whatever was down there wasn't hunting. It was feeding. And it had lived here far longer than any of us. I didn't go to work the next day. The smell was everywhere now, not just in my apartment. It clung to the stairwell, pulled in corners, followed me like a living thing. A few doors on my floor were open. Too open. As if the people inside had left in a hurry, or hadn't left at all. Mr. Harlan's door was closed. I knocked. No answer. I pressed my hand against the wood. Warm. Warmer than it should have been. That was when I noticed the flies. They crawled out from the crack under his door in slow, lazy lines, bumping into each other. Wings buzzing softly. I stepped back, heart pounding, and finally did the thing I had been avoiding since last night. I went to the basement. The door at the end of the stairwell had always been locked. Today, it was slightly open. The smell poured out like breath from a mouth. The lights flickered when I flipped the switch. Concrete walls. Old storage cages. Rusted pipes dripping something dark and sticky onto the floor. And footprints. Bare feet. They went both directions. Some heading deeper inside. Others stopping abruptly. At the far end of the basement, behind a row of broken washing machines, I found the hole. It wasn't part of the building. The concrete had been eaten away, edges smooth and rounded. Like something had licked it over and over. The hole was wide enough for a person to crawl into, and something had. I heard movement inside. Not chewing this time. Breathing. Slow. Patient. Then a sound like swallowing. I stumbled backward, nearly slipping in the dark liquid coating the floor. My phone buzzed again. A private message. From an unknown number. It prefers the lonely ones. I typed back without thinking. What are you? The reply came instantly. Caretaker. The basement lights went out. In complete darkness, something shifted inside the hole. I felt it more than heard it. A pressure change. Like the room itself was leaning toward me. A hand touched my ankle. Human. Too cold. I kicked free and ran up the stairs, not daring to look back. When I reached my floor, I realized something else was wrong. Every apartment door was open now. Every single one. And the smell was strongest at mine. I didn't go inside my apartment. The smell was too strong, almost sweet now. like something ripe and rotting at the same time. I stood in the hallway, staring at the open doorway, knowing, without understanding how, that if I crossed that threshold, something would cross with me. I went to the maintenance room instead. Most tenants never noticed it. A narrow metal door near the elevator, usually locked. This time, it wasn't. Inside, shelves sagged under the weight of old boxes and folders. Building records, complaints, incident reports no one ever followed up on. I found the first note by accident, scratched into the inside of a fuse box, barely visible. IT knows when you're alone. More writing covered the walls behind the shelves. Dozens of different handwritings. Some neat, some frantic. Noise complaints were lies. Basement was sealed in 1987. Do not feed it yourself. It remembers. One name appeared again and again. Harlan. I found his file near the bottom of a cabinet. Not a tenant file. A caretaker contract. Signed over 30 years ago. My phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. You read too much. How do you see me? I whispered. The lights flickered in response. I realized then that the building wasn't just sheltering the thing in the basement. It was part of it. The pipes weren't pipes. They were hollowed channels. The walls weren't walls. They were barriers grown thick over time. Every renovation, every patch, every complaint had only made it smarter. The chewing started again. Not below. Above me. I looked up just in time to see a crack form in the ceiling. Dust fell like ash. Something pressed down from inside, stretching the concrete until it bowed. A face pushed through. Human-shaped, but wrong. Skin pale and translucent, pulled tight over moving shapes underneath. Its mouth opened wider than possible, jaw unhinging with a wet sound. It spoke using Harlan's voice. You missed feeding time. I ran. Down the hallway, past open apartments. Inside some of them, I saw signs of sudden absence, phones left charging, TVs still on, meals half-eaten. In one room, claw marks covered the walls in tight circles, as if someone had been dragged while trying to run. At the end of the hall, the elevator doors stood open. Inside was the hole. Not in the floor. In the wall. Breathing. Waiting. And carved above it, freshly written, were my initials. I didn't take the elevator. Even standing near it made my skin crawl. The air around the open doors felt warmer, damp, like breath against my face. The hole inside the wall pulsed slowly, expanding and shrinking as if the building itself were alive. Instead, I went down the stairs. Every step echoed too loudly. My footsteps sounded wrong, delayed, as if something else was walking a half-second behind me, carefully matching my pace. I didn't look back. On the fourth-floor landing, I found another maintenance room. This one had been forced open long ago. The doorframe was cracked, wood bent inward by something strong and impatient. Inside, someone had taped papers to the walls. Rules. Handwritten. Numbered. Some crossed out. Some rewritten over and over. 1. Never feed it yourself. 2. It prefers names, not faces. 3. Noise attracts it. Silence invites it. 4. Once it learns you, it does not forget. Below the rules was a calendar, yellowed with age. Dates circled in red. Always the same interval. Every 3 weeks. Feeding time. I finally understood. People weren't disappearing randomly. They were being balanced. The building needed a certain number of occupants. Too many, and it fed. Too few, and it hunted. A note was pinned at the bottom with a rusted nail. Caretakers don't choose who goes. They choose who stays. My phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Harlan broke Rule 1. What happens now? I typed with shaking hands. Dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Now it needs a replacement. The stairwell lights went out all at once. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in dull red. I heard doors opening below me. Slow. Careful. Like curiosity, not panic. Something began climbing the stairs. Not rushing. Taking its time. Each step creaked under a weight that didn't belong to one body. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath, remembering Rule 3 too late. Silence invites it. The thing paused on the landing below me. I could hear it breathing now, through pipes, through walls, through the concrete itself. It spoke softly, using many voices layered together. "Caretaker," it said. The word crawled into my ears. I realized then that it wasn't asking. It was assigning. I don't remember deciding to go back to my apartment. My body moved on its own, guided by something between instinct and fear. The stairwell released me onto my floor, and the smell wrapped around me immediately. Familiar now, almost welcoming. The door to my apartment was fully open. Inside, the lights were on. I hadn't left them on. My phone buzzed again as I stepped inside. "You can still negotiate," the message read. Negotiate what? I whispered. The walls answered. A low vibration passed through them, like a throat clearing before speech. The floorboards flexed under my feet, subtly shifting, guiding me toward the living room. On the wall opposite the couch, new writing had appeared. Not scratched, pressed from the inside. Letters bulged outward, stretching the paint like skin. Names are easier than bodies. Memories last longer than meat. I felt something tug inside my head then, a gentle pull, like someone flipping through pages that didn't belong to them. Faces flashed in my mind. Neighbors I barely knew. Voices from the hallway. Names I had read in the building records. The thing was tasting them, learning which ones were ripe. I dropped to my knees, hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The pressure increased, slow and patient. A shape formed in the corner of the room. Not fully visible, just enough to understand it was there. Limbs overlapping incorrectly. A mouth opening and closing, testing sounds. It spoke using my voice. "My name is..." "No," I said out loud, forcing the word through clenched teeth. The shape twitched. I understood then what Harlan had done wrong. Caretakers weren't fed to the thing. They fed for it. They offered names. The phone buzzed again. "Give it one," the message said. "Just one, and it will leave you alone." A name surfaced in my mind instantly. Someone quiet. Someone lonely. Someone no one would question disappearing. The pressure eased, encouraging, rewarding. I stood up slowly and spoke the name. The room exhaled. The shape in the corner folded inward, collapsing into the wall like it had never existed. The smell faded to a faint trace, almost nostalgic. For a moment, everything was still. Then my phone buzzed one last time. It worked, the message read. "But now it knows how you sound when you lie." From somewhere deep in the building, I heard chewing. And this time, it sounded pleased. I packed a bag in under 5 minutes. I didn't take much. Wallet, phone, keys, things that proved I existed somewhere outside this building. The smell was gone now, but that almost made it worse. Silence had settled into the walls, thick and watchful. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed the doors. They were closed again. Every single one. Clean. Undisturbed. As if no one had ever left in a hurry. As if no one had ever been taken. I made it down the stairs without hearing footsteps behind me. That felt intentional. Like being allowed to leave, just to see what I would do next. Outside, the air felt wrong. Too light. Too empty. I walked 3 blocks before my hands stopped shaking. Another block before my phone vibrated. Unknown number. Distance doesn't matter. I stopped walking. "What do you want from me?" I typed. The reply took longer this time. Consistency. That night, in my temporary motel room, I dreamed of hallways that stretched forever. Doors with no numbers. Voices whispering my name from inside the walls, repeating it until it lost meaning. I woke up choking on the smell. It wasn't strong. Just enough to recognize. The TV turned on by itself. Static. Then text appeared over the noise. Letters forming slowly, like they were being learned again. Feeding delayed. Imbalance detected. My phone buzzed again. You can't abandon a role. That was when I understood the final rule. Caretakers didn't belong to the building. The building belonged to them. I went back the next morning. The front door opened before I touched it. Inside, the lobby looked cleaner than I remembered. Fresh paint. New notices on the board. A welcome home sign taped crookedly near the mailboxes. A name had been added to the tenant list. Mine. The basement door was open. Waiting. From deep below, something shifted, restless now. Hungry in a way I hadn't heard before. I realized my mistake too late. I hadn't fed it enough. And now it wasn't asking for names anymore. It was calling for mine. The basement steps felt softer than before. Not damp, giving. Like walking on packed soil instead of concrete. The walls breathed quietly as I descended, expanding and contracting in a slow, patient rhythm. The smell returned with every step, richer now, layered with something metallic and old. At the bottom, I found a room I'd never seen before. It looked nothing like the rest of the basement. The walls were scorched black, ceiling cracked and sagging. Melted wiring hung like veins. In the center of the room stood a rusted oil drum, its sides warped from intense heat. Someone had tried to destroy it. Scrawled across the blackened wall were words burned directly into the concrete. Ita learned to eat around the fire. I found a journal near the drum. The pages were brittle, edges charred. The handwriting grew shakier with each entry. The first caretaker hadn't been chosen. He'd volunteered. Decades ago, when the building was new, people began disappearing in small numbers. The smell came first. Then the sounds. The thing didn't have a shape back then, just hunger and instinct. They tried to starve it. That made it curious. They tried to kill it. That taught it pain. And pain taught it how to remember. The journal ended with a single sentence written over and over until the page tore. It eats what you are before it eats what you were. The lights flickered. The walls tightened. I felt it focus on me. Not physically, personally. You learned fast, it said, voice spreading through the room like smoke. That's why you'll last. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. Not fully formed. A suggestion of shoulders. A face that shifted between familiar ones. Harlan. The neighbors. Faces I had offered willingly. Caretaker faces. They thought fire would erase it, the voice continued. But fire only cleans bones. The floor split open beneath me, not violently, but carefully. Like a mouth opening wide enough to speak clearly. You have one choice left, it said. Stay and feed me slowly. Leave and be remembered forever. I understood what that meant. Names given once were eaten. Names carried away were kept. I backed away from the opening, heart pounding, knowing the final stage wasn't about survival. It was about permanence. The building leaned closer, listening, waiting to hear what I would choose to become. I didn't run. Not anymore. The basement floor had split open, blackness swallowing the light. The walls pulsed around me, breathing in sync with something alive beneath the concrete. I knew now there was no escaping, not really. Leaving had only delayed it. The building had claimed me the moment I stepped inside. I dropped to my knees. The smell surrounded me completely, thick and sweet, sticky as syrup. Faces swirled in the shadows. Harlan. The first caretaker. Neighbors I had only seen in passing. Each face twisted into the next until there was no distinction between them. And I felt them watching from behind my own eyes. A voice hissed from the darkness. Choose. Name one, or become permanent. My throat burned. My mind screamed. I could give a name, any name. And the pulsing would ease, the walls would relax, and the chewing would retreat. But I knew better now. Names didn't stop it. Names fed it, tied it to you forever. Once you offered one, it remembered the sound, the weight, the fear. Nothing was forgotten. I swallowed hard. I whispered no names. The walls groaned. Pipes rattled. Dust fell in slow rain. Something shifted beneath me, rising like water in reverse. The floor lifted, stretching me toward the blackness. I felt the pull inside my chest, deep, insistent, learning me. Not my body, not my face, me. The essence that survived outside the building, my thoughts, my regrets, my fear. It tasted them, folded them, and stored them somewhere inside the concrete. I realized then that caretaking wasn't survival. It was transformation. Once the building claimed you, you became part of it. Your name, your memory, your identity, all layered into the thing below. Harlan hadn't disappeared. He had become permanent. So had the others. The blackness swallowed my legs. I reached out for the floor above me, but it was gone. Only the walls remained, closing around me in slow, deliberate motion. I could feel the chewing again, not in my ears, but in my mind. Gentle, learning, satisfied. The voice whispered one last thing, in a chorus of all the names it had collected over decades. Welcome home. I didn't resist. I let the walls claim me. Let the building feed. Let it remember me as it remembered everyone else. There was no terror left. Only understanding. Only permanence. And somewhere above, the city carried on, unaware that in that small, unremarkable building, a new tenant had joined the list. Another caretaker, another memory, another name stored for the next feeding. The smell lingered in the hallway for days. A faint sweetness, unnoticed by anyone else, waiting for the next person to step inside.